All right, my friends. We just pressed the Let's Go Live button, which means we've got to wait for the stream to fire up all across the fruited plain of the interwebs before we go ahead and get started on this amazing and lovely Friday. Very grateful that you're here and joining us. Hopefully your week was incredible and everything you set your mind to on Monday is done. It's all been accomplished. You're feeling incredible with a very successful week. We got tubes connected on the YouTubes, over on Locals, on Rumble. That's tremendous news. That means we can go ahead and get started. So let's do it, shall we? Hello, my friends, and welcome back to yet another episode of Watching the Watchers Live, the show that spotlights misconduct involving police, prosecutors, and politicians. My name is Robert Gouveia. I am a criminal defense attorney, and today we're talking about the clock that is ticking away. We've got Jack Smith wants to get his trials completed before the election. We've got Bannon with an emergency appeal to the Supreme Court, and we've got sentencing coming up in the Alvin Bragg prosecution and the trial, and we've got a state suing now to stop Bragg from interfering with the election here in 2024. So 3 good segments coming up. The big one that we'll start with is with what's going on in Florida, because today, inside Judge Cannon's courtroom, we had some very interesting stuff happening. We know that Trump's defense team has submitted a whole slew of motions to dismiss the classified documents case because Jack Smith is illegally appointed. That's just one reason they're moving to dismiss the case. But there's also discovery problems. There's attorney-client privilege problems. There's raid problems where they were illegally manipulating evidence and all sorts of different justifications for dismissal of the case. But the big one that we're starting off with is about Jack Smith's illegal appointment. Remember, he was never appointed by the president. He was never confirmed by the Senate. The money that he's spending, our money as Americans, is from some Justice Department slush fund. So we don't want him around prosecuting and interfering with the 2024 election if he's not even lawfully appointed. So they got into that today. And as always, because it's federal court, there's no video, there's no audio, and in Cannon's courtroom, there's not even any X scripts for us to review because they're not allowed to have even technology in the courtroom. So we'll see what some sources have for us about what happened. We'll see what CNN says, NBC, and we had Anna Bauer and Katie Fang from MSNBC who were there reporting about what went on inside. So we'll see what they say. Then we'll also look at what's happening with this gag, because remember, related to Jack Smith's illegality is Jack Smith's attempt to try to gag Trump. Trump said, hey, I remember what you guys did. You raided my private residence with your federal agents. And remember, they all came in with plain clothes and they all had guns on them. And you didn't notify us that you were going to come raid us, even though we were cooperating with you and we sat down with you not long before this raid. And you actually put in there a use of force policy in your raid documents. And we know that in other FBI raids, people die. So if this is nothing different than any of the other cases, well, turns out you can use deadly force, huh? So American First Legal, who does great work, we really appreciate all of their efforts out there. We have a new filing from them. They're joining as amicus, or asking permission to join as amicus on this matter, and saying that Trump has a right to speak freely about all of this stuff and he should not be gagged at all. So we'll see what they said. Then we'll see what MSNBC says in reaction to all this, because they're unhappy with Judge Cannon. They'd rather every single judge be like Judge Merchan or Judge Chetkin or Judge Kaplan and just execute Trump at every justification, every legal turn that they can justify. But we'll see what she says, all in that first segment as we go through on the classified documents case. Then we are just days away from Steve Bannon having to report to prison, and it is coming down to a wire now. So here's the latest. Bannon had appealed to the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals. That was denied. I know we're all shocked. I know. I know. So they denied it. Big deal. We expected that. Now he is filing his emergency application to the U.S. Supreme Court. So now we're going to the final say, and that got submitted today. So an emergency appeal. And we have a little bit of a potential opening. The Supreme Court might do something about it. I still doubt it. But here's what they said. There's a new filing saying that, oh, that's actually a bad screenshot that I took. So this is, we'll actually pull it up, but they have ordered a response from the government. So at least Bannon's knocking on the door of the Supreme Court was not automatically rejected, right? He says, go check with the government. Let's see if they have to say anything about this before we make our decision. But Bannon just has days away before he's scheduled to turn himself in for custody because they want him off the field. They don't want him talking to his millions of people in his audience, castigating the deep state and advocating on behalf of Trump. So they'll take him out. They'll put him in prison. They'll try to take him off the field. Then in our final segment, we will talk about Alvin Bragg. And there's a new claim by the Missouri AG. He says he's going to be suing the state of New York. And this has come up here before. We're talking about what other things can we do? I mean, if this is election interference, aren't the people of Missouri now being oppressed, now having their constitutional rights violated? They have a right to hear from a presidential candidate. And Alvin Bragg is asking and demanding that that presidential candidate, Donald Trump, be gagged and essentially go to jail, theoretically. We don't know what the state is asking for when sentencing comes about. But he's saying, all right, look, let's file a claim. He says he is going to be suing, has not filed or drafted the claim yet, so we do not have a document to go through quite yet. But the Missouri AG, Andrew Bailey, got a couple clips of him saying that they're going to be bringing a claim against Alvin Bragg for election interference, unconstitutional lawfare, attacking our democratic process, which obviously that's the whole design. That's what all of these were about from the beginning a couple of years ago. So Bragg now is responding to this. He's fighting for the gag. We read through previously this week, if you missed it, Trump's opposition, right? Trump's request to end the gag. The case is now done. All we're waiting for is sentencing. There's no more jurors to be petrified about. There's no more Michael Cohens who might be intimidated or anything like that. So why is he still gagged? Well, obviously, because they don't want him to talk about how rigged this whole thing is. And so Bragg responded and said, no, Your Honor, please keep him gagged because we hate what he says. He makes us look like corrupt pieces of garbage. We also had this woman who says that what happened in New York was incredible. And in fact, more people should hold Trump's feet to the fire. He's not being punished enough. We need to increase the penalties because the people, she'll tell us, that the public has a right. The public has a right in these cases, not the defendant. The public does. And wait a minute. The government has a right to prosecute people? Is that what our country is now? Like there's a presumption of prosecution? What is happening? So everything's being topsy-turvy because they hate Trump. People who theoretically dedicated their lives to the law now have no understanding of how it works at all. And then we'll wrap up the clip, the day, and the segment with Alina in the house, who's going to comment on the Engoron saga also taking place out of New York, which we learned on yesterday's show, if you missed that Engoron was apparently having conversations with another attorney called Adam Bailey, no relation to Andrew Bailey, so far as we know, but is now in hot water for having communicated ex parte with another lawyer about the case and didn't notify the defense or the prosecution about it at all, which is against New York judicial and ethical code for judges. So we've got 3 good segments to get to today, my friends. I'm glad that you're here and with us. Hopefully you're staying a little cool out there. It's hot all over the place here, man, in Arizona. You walk outside, it's like getting punched in the face repeatedly. It's like, well, we'll just leave that there. I had some fanny comments and other things, so we'll just leave that there. But it's like, yeah, anyways. So we got 3 good segments to get to today. Hopefully you're having an amazing day and an amazing Friday. We had a great members-only stream this morning for our YouTube membos, for our locals membos. We streamed about the debate stuff. We're talking a lot of political stuff, a lot of stuff we can't get to here. We stream about in the morning. Come join us, watchingthewatchers.locals.com. And we do a members-only after party on Locals after the show, so come say hello. We also have our website, robertgovea.com. We put our PDFs up there. We have our merch store. We have our show calendar. And the show calendar is going to be a little bit wonktified next week. We have the debate on Thursday. I'm traveling Wednesday. I'm at a conference on Friday. We got Watcher Meetup on Saturday. So the schedule will be a little bit wonk, but I'll keep it updated on the calendar at robertgovea.com. And if you're thinking of joining us for the meetup, come register right now. I need a food count. I need to know how much food we're going to get. And it's going to be delicious food, the best food, because it's going to be at Trump Hotel and casino international in Las Vegas. So check it out. Grab your tickets, watcherlodge.com. Plan is we're going to be spending an afternoon together, talking, having some fun. And then if you want to join us, we're going to go over to a show at the Sphere and hang out and get to know each other. So come check that out. Grab your tickets, watcherlodge.com. We hope to see you there because it's going to be amazing. And my mama's going to be there and Joey's going to be there. It's just going to be so much fun. So come check it out. Meet the whole fam. All right, come check it out. We'll see you there in Las Vegas. And it's going to be, the debate is it's less than a week away. Whew. All right. So it's going to be fun. All right. So let's get to it. We got some business to attend to before we close out the week. And we're starting in Florida. Judge Cannon in the classified documents case grills Jack Smith and his team. We were there for a hearing about Jack Smith's illegal appointment. As we've talked about here a long time, Jack Smith was not appointed by the president. He was not confirmed by the Senate. He's not a U.S. attorney like other special counsels were. And so he just kind of got pulled into this whole thing from who knows where. And then he got a bunch of government money from essentially a slush fund that the DOJ has set aside with no caps or limits, and we have questions about the appropriations clause as well. So Jack illegally appointed because he was not actually appointed, and he's got illegal money because of the illegal appropriation. So two big fat A words there that mean Jack Smith is illegal in the judiciary, violating the border of appointments and appropriations. And so we're going to go through what happened today. As we know, no technology inside the courtroom, no live tweets, no audio, no video, nothing we can really peer into until we get the transcripts. But let's see what the news had for us, telling us they were reporting after the fact, assembling all this stuff. They are reporting, telling us that the judge, you know who she is, Alina Cannon, seen here presiding over the classified documents case. They tried to throw her off there. That Bush appointee said, you're a little too experienced here. Why don't you let me handle this? And she said, get out of here. I'm handling this case. I got the appointment. Back off. So here they tell us that District Judge Alina Cannon held a hearing on Friday, that's today, to argue or to hear arguments about a motion to dismiss from Trump, saying that Jack Smith's appointment was illegal. Now, when we were inside the courtroom, the report tells us Trump's lawyers argued that an officer like Jack Smith must be appointed by law. Got to have some power behind the appointment. And that the special counsel should be categorized as a principal officer and subject to Senate confirmation. Because Jack Smith can just go around the country, gather evidence, do whatever he wants, act like a full U.S. attorney. He can prosecute crimes. So he's acting as somebody with tremendous power. So that power needs to emanate from somewhere. Usually that's the law. Where does the law get its power? The Constitution. The statutory text that's cited by Jack Smith's office, they say does not authorize his appointment, says Trump's lawyer, Emil Beauvais. Because remember what Jack Smith said, what Merrick Garland said, is they use these things called the Reno regulations that just gobble together a bunch of statutes that are really irrelevant to anything. And then they say, well, we can infer that there's a little power here that we have because this says we can have a little power over here and a little over here. And so because we have these little things, we can smash those little things together and it gives us like this brand new power. And that means we can just go appoint Jack Smith, who is apparently the most powerful man in the country because he can prosecute former presidents. And he's only kind of subject to Merrick Garland, maybe a little bit, but not really. So here, Cannon apparently appeared skeptical, of some of Trump's defense arguments, including that the Attorney General's ability to appoint a special counsel with the authority of the U.S. Attorney is akin to the power to appoint a shadow government. She said, a shadow government, you wrote that in your motion. Well, that sounds very ominous, said the judge. A shadow government, huh? But what does that mean? Says Cannon. Now, Bove said, Your Honor, it's pretty simple. That would result from the Attorney General just being able to appoint people with law enforcement power, but there's no oversight. There is the law, the statutes that say these offices are allowed and you can fill those offices. And how do you fill them? By presidential appointment, Senate confirmation, and then they can hire their employees. But the reason we have that process is so we have oversight of those people because U.S. attorneys have tremendous power. And if Merrick Garland doesn't have to do that, if he can just assign somebody, just go prosecute a bunch of people for whatever he wants without appointment and approval from the Senate, then there is no oversight. He bypasses that whole process. He can do that unilaterally whenever he wants. And Cannon said, well, is that really a realistic risk when you have, well-defined statutes regarding the Attorney General's appointment authority? And clearly, we do not have well-defined statutes because they're cobbling together the Reno regulations, which is like 7 or 8 different U.S. codes, to create this power. Now, Cannon also asked about the history of the use of special counsels and independent counsels, which no longer exist anymore because Congress let that expire, and special prosecutors. She went all the way back to the 1800s. Now, speaking for Jack's office, Jack Smith and Jay Bratt, James Pierce, he disputed the notion that the appointment of Jack violates the Constitution. He says, Your Honor, their arguments disregard precedent here. And if you get rid of Jack Smith, Your Honor, there would be pernicious consequences. Like, yeah, your stolen power that's completely illegitimate would not be yours anymore. So you'd have to dismiss this case. And the prosecutor says, no. And Your Honor, by the way, this was already resolved in U.S. versus Nixon anyways. The Watergate era case where the Supreme Court found that Nixon had to release audio recordings and other evidence related to the scandal. He said, Your Honor, in the Nixon case, the court found that the Attorney General had the authority to appoint a special counsel with the power to investigate independently. That's not exactly right, okay? The court didn't find that. They just didn't address it. It wasn't challenged. They just said, okay, well, I guess we'll deal with it since we're here. But neither party was contesting the appointment of a special counsel in that case. Trump's defense has already brought that up. I said, okay, like they handled the Nixon case that did have a special counsel, but nobody was challenging that. Well, we're challenging it here. What's the basis for the power? Prosecutor responded to Emil Bove's attempts to draw a distinction between officials and officers. Says, Your Honor, there's no difference between official or officers, nothing like that. The government says official is a catch-all term. It means anything we want it to mean. Officers and employees. It's just kind of everything. Government said, and there's historical precedent for this too, by the way. We've had many other special counsels that have been appointed by other people. For example, he says President Ulysses S. Grant and Teddy Roosevelt, they had independent special counsels before noting that Congress had long approved of the practice of appointing independent special counsels. Yeah, again, nobody's contesting that. Like, you can do that. That's fine. You can do it. No problem. You just have to do it. The right mechanisms need to be in place in order to get that done. You can't just pull a Jack Smith out of your fanny and say, this is our new special counsel. You have to go through a process. And okay, that's fine. If you have a U.S. attorney, why don't you bring a U.S. attorney over who was already appointed by the president and confirmed by the Senate? You could have made him the special counsel. You didn't need to go find Jack Smith. Nobody's questioning that. 3 outside parties that had also filed briefs were also presenting arguments in court today. Toward the end of the hearing, Cannon asked the prosecution several questions, including, all right, government, did the Attorney General have any oversight role in seeking the indictment? Great question. What is Cannon trying to do there? Pin them down. Did Merrick Garland have anything to do with this indictment? Government says, well, Your Honor, it's a matter of policy. We can't talk about that. We can't talk about our charging decisions as a matter of policy. They came prepared. Well, then Cannon said, well, okay, if you're not willing to answer that question, tell me why there would be any heartburn in answering whether Attorney General Garland signed off on the indictment in the classified documents case, regardless of policy. Why there would be any heartburn? Why is that a problem if you just tell us? You just tell us if Garland signed off on it, then that means, right, that Jack is subordinate to Garland. This is what we're trying to figure out. Is Jack subordinate to Garland, or is Jack like even more powerful than Garland? Did Garland have to sign off on it, or is Jack like totally independent of Garland? Because I think the theory would be that Jack is under Garland and Garland is monitoring him, so he doesn't need to be appointed. He's just kind of like this special employee who doesn't need appointment and appropriations. But wait a minute, if Garland didn't sign off on it, then he really is kind of like this extra office that's not built into by the law, and he has total charging power. It's really, wow. So did he or did he not? Can you tell us? No, I can't. Policy. Well, how about in Florida, classified documents case? How about maybe in the J6 case even? But she says, okay, so you're not even going to tell us? He says, Your Honor, I don't want it to seem like I'm hiding anything, but it would be against my policy to answer that specific question. They can't answer that question. Because if they say Merrick Garland signed off on it, then you say, oh, great. So this is a political hack job. All right. So Garland works for Biden. Garland signed off on the prosecution. So now Biden is prosecuting Trump. Got it. They can't answer that. And if they say that, no, there is no political oversight, there's really no oversight of this, then, oh, they're caught even worse, because now they've created this extra position of Jack Smith's special counsel office that is not under Merrick Garland. So where the hell did that come from? Where does that power emanate from? They have to justify that. So they don't want to say that either, because there is no independent counsel provision anymore, right? That all expired. And now they're cobbling together these other provisions to try to say Jack has the power. We call those the Reno regulations. So before the court adjourned, so they just don't answer. They demur on that. Now, of course they would, because they're stuck because they're illegal. Before court adjourned, Cannon asked prosecutors and the defense to file any supplemental materials, including any statutory citations and case law, 5 pages max, did not issue a ruling. Now, Garland appointed Smith, for some backstory here, as special counsel November 22, tasked him with overseeing federal investigations. The hearing on Friday dealt with a motion Trump's lawyers filed here. We've already talked about it. We've heard him file it. Ed Meese, many times here, does not permit the attorney general to appoint a special counsel without Senate confirmation. A private citizen and like-minded political ally to wield this prosecutorial power. Jack lacks authority to prosecute this case. Because neither the Constitution nor Congress have ever created the office of the special counsel, the appointment is invalid, right? So if they admit that Jack Smith is not under Merrick Garland, and Garland did not sign off on this, then they've created this whole new, whoa, he's not working for mayor. Well, who's he working for? Special counsel? Well, what provision, where does that come from? There is no law. They further argued that the funding also violates the appropriations. They say Biden's DOJ is paying for this off the books, right? It's a slush fund without any accountability or authorization. It's limitless, as much money as you want. Rather than funding the special counsel's office through the ordinary budget process, Jack Smith is drawing on a permanent, indefinite appropriation. It's not even available to the special counsel. It's under the Reno regulations, not even available to them. So Jack Smith's money is also illegal. Now, they say the court should also dismiss the superseding indictment against Trump and the other co-defendants. Jack Smith said no. The attorney general does have statutory authority to appoint inferior officers. All right. So, okay. So did Jack Smith did Garland sign off on this because he's inferior under the officer of Garland? And that previous court decisions say we can appoint special counsels. Not really. They didn't really challenge it. Now, the arguments by Trump's legal team have been raised unsuccessfully against previously special counsels like Robert Mueller and David Weiss, who were both previous U.S. attorneys. David Weiss is a U.S. attorney, already appointed and confirmed. So was Robert Mueller previously. Friday's court proceedings, meaning the president appointed them, some president appointed them, and some other, and the Senate confirmed to both. Now, Friday's court proceedings was the first of 3 consecutive hearings that Cannon is holding. Others are set for Monday and Tuesday. Let's go. And a previous trial date was canceled in the case. No future one has been set. They're very upset about that. The hearing comes a few weeks after the hush money case, the fake Bragg prosecution, and Trump was convicted in that case, as we saw. Now, here's a little bit more. Let's see what CNN reports for us, see if anything is different here. It says Cannon also appeared skeptical about Jack Smith's appointment arguments, but she also displayed some common distrust of the prosecutors. Trump's arguing Jack Smith is unlawful, saying that no, he couldn't have appointed somebody who is like Jack. And they say, no, he is inferior. Cannon was prepared with questions talking about the shadow government, very ominous. New York Times reported previously, we talked about this yesterday, that 2 other judges tried to, I would say, unethically pressure Cannon to give up this case. Are you sure you can handle this, Cannon? Why don't you give it to me so I can just make it go my way, just like Judge Mercon? Prosecutor James Pierce, during the argument, said that Garland could this very moment fire Smith. So now we're getting into this. Says, well, Your Honor, we're following all the rules of special counsels. And says, well, has there been any actual oversight? We're trying to distinguish. Does Garland actually oversee Jack or not? Does he? He says, yes, Your Honor, there has, but I decline to give you any details about the internal deliberations of the DOJ. Cannon says, come on, I need to know. Like, we're trying to decide what is Jack Smith's role. Does he have a boss or not? Says, it sounds like to me you're experiencing heartburn over the question of whether Garland even signed off on the indictment. Can you tell us? Did Garland sign off on the indictment? Like, yes or no? Well, Your Honor, regulations say that we report any major developments to the Attorney General. Okay, so you report? Pierce said earlier that an indictment could certainly be considered a major development. Well, Your Honor, I can't talk about the specifics of this case, but most of the time, the rules and regulations say we do have to report these things, and so that would generally be a major development. Okay, report, or is it sign off? So is he a subordinate? Is he an inferior to Garland, or is he just telling him, hey, I'm indicting Trump? If so, where'd that power come from? Now, the judge is allowing several hours of questioning. The series of hearings will resume on Monday. Non-parties have also been allowed to argue. In one filing, attorneys for former Attorney General and Citizen United says they've given Jack Smith a ton of power and saying that Smith's appointment severely undermines constitutional order. Before taking his role as special counsel, Smith was a prosecutor in The Hague, prosecuting war crimes for some other country, some other entity. Now, in support of Smith and his appointment as special counsel, attorneys say no, that there's a difference between principal and inferior officers, and he's fully independent. So some people are saying he's fully independent. Oh, he is, really? So then he doesn't report to Garland. Well, we can't talk about that. Oh, so he does report to Garland. So it's political. Okay. He added that the oversight was a more hands-off approach. Okay, but Attorney General, he says, Your Honor, well, there's sufficient direction here, okay? There is a kind of oversight from Garland, because there's regulations that govern this, which is the Reno regulations, which they just made up. They just pulled these pieces together out of nowhere. He said, Your Honor, oversight was, quote, a more hands-off approach. So there is none. But he noted the Attorney General could fire Smith if he didn't approve of his work. Okay, so he is subordinate. In his two federal cases, Hunter Biden is also arguing that his special counsel is unlawful. Yeah, and so, see, David Weiss, which they reference in the NBC article, was already, they say, and Hunter has a good point too. Hunter's trying to get rid of David Weiss. David Weiss was also corruptly appointed. David Weiss was already prosecuting him, and then they said, you're just a special counsel now. What? He was, and you go, wait, what? He was already prosecuting him, so how is he independent or special at all? Well, they just wanted to keep the same guy. They just put a label on him. They just stamped him on the forehead with special counsel now. Why? Because he had already rigged the first attempted non-prosecution agreement with Hunter, so they didn't want to bring in some other attorney who would wreck the plan. They just brought in Weiss. They would just give you a promotion. You've already done a good job covering this up for us, so we'll just give you the special counsel role now. Hunter is looking at this going, wait, what? It's supposed to be a special counsel, somebody who's actually not already involved in the underlying thing, to come in and deal with the ethical conflicts that have arisen that justify the need for the special counsel in the first place. So Hunter is actually right. The DOJ is corrupt on both ends. And Hunter, I think, proves our point that they just are appointing these special counsels willy-nilly to serve their ends. One is to benefit their corrupt efforts to serve Hunter Biden, which I don't know why he's complaining about David Weiss. I mean, the guy gave him the attempt, the most smoking deal of a lifetime. But meanwhile, Jack Smith, totally illegal, never appointed appropriately. So we had other people who were actually there in the courtroom. A couple links here from Anna Bauer. She is someone who reports over for Lawfare. She was there. Here's a picture. Says this is what it looks like at the scene. Just to get a little flavor for it. This is the courtroom corridor, looks like. Says today, first of not one, but 3 days of hearings. Trump's team arguing that Jack Smith was unlawfully appointed. So her phone went in, and now she came back out after the lunch break. She says, all right, Judge Cannon heard argument from Trump's defense attorney, Emil Bove. Pierce argued on behalf of the special counsel. Says Cannon grilled them both Pierce and Bove, on their respective arguments, focusing on the regulations, questions related to textual analysis of the statutes, right? Jack Smith says, this gives me power, this gives me power, and this gives me power. And the DOJ regulations under which A.G. Garland appointed Jack Smith. We've covered those many times here. Now, Cannon at times appeared skeptical of Trump's claims that Smith was unlawfully appointed, but she also did not seem entirely convinced by the special counsel's arguments to the contrary. At one point, she suggested that the special counsel's statutory analysis reflects an excessively, quote, malleable reading of the Constitution's texts. Yeah, you're not kidding on that one. She goes back in for the afternoon session. During the afternoon session, 3 attorneys who represent the amicus, the curiae, the friends of the court, will argue before Judge Cannon. They're done on the day. No ruling from the bench from Anna Bauer. And we also had a little bit from Katie Fang. She's a reporter over on MSNBC. Gave us a summary. Says Bove's rebuttal said something like, Your Honor, the thrust of so much of the opposition to this motion is that we have done this frequently in the past with other special counsels, and so therefore it's okay. Right? Jack Smith and his argument is we've been doing this forever. So since we've done it already, we can keep doing it. Says congressional acquiescence has to fall away, and the text of the relevant statutory clauses must be read together. And Bove said that official in the statute means an employee, not inferior officer. So Cannon says, well, why would Congress not just use the word employee? He says, well, I don't have a good answer for that one. Congress could have said employee, I guess. I wish they did that. Would have cleared this up, but they just generally don't use those phrases. Now, Bove on rebuttal, Bove, he brought up special counsel's emphatic statement to Judge Chutkan in D.C. that there is no coordination with the AG on this case. He says, Your Honor, they're giving you a bunch of nonsense here today. Okay, they're not telling you whether Garland signed off on the indictment or not. And then it's internal policy. No, that's not true. They already told Judge Chutkan in their written filings. They told her that there was no coordination. They didn't say it was like offhand oversight or whatever they just told us. It's kind of an offhand approach here. We're not really, but we could fire him at any moment. They told us there was no coordination at all. So there is no oversight, not a hands-off approach. They're trying to sugarcoat it for you, Judge. Don't let them. That means that he is not subject to Garland's power, and they've created an office extra legally. Bove said that the special counsel's office needs to prove that they're in line with the DOJ manual and demonstrate the department's oversight. If there actually is oversight here and he actually works for Garland, what is it? Government says, no, Your Honor, we've been following all the rules of the Justice Department manual, okay? We are following the rules. Cannon asks, well, did the Attorney General have any oversight role in actually seeking the indictment? That's a big decision. Was Garland involved in that? Did he review anything? Did he look at it? The judge knows. Okay. This is a historic indictment. Did Garland even look at it? Or did he just pawn this off to someone else? Because you don't do that in a case like this. Government says, well, Your Honor, we can't really talk about internal policies about what happens at the DOJ, so we're not going to answer that one. Oh, okay. Now, why would there be any heartburn? I see you guys looking like a little uncomfortable, squirreling in your seats over there, government. Why is your heartburn acting up? Would you like some of these? I don't even know what you take for those. I was going to do a pharmaceutical commercial, but can't do it. Sorry, blew that one. Here, have some heartburn medication. Why can't you answer this question? Whether Garland signed off on it. Can you tell us? Your Honor, I don't want to seem like I'm hiding anything, but I am, but maintain that it would be against policy to answer that specific question. Says, Your Honor, here, have some Rolaids. Thanks, Chad. We disagree with the premise that there is no oversight for the special counsel, okay? There was oversight. We have to comply with the consultation policies and the practice. And the AG can ask questions and overrule decisions and even rescind this entire appointment in the first place. Okay, but it would require affirmative action from Merrick Garland to do that, right? He would have to step in and do something like that. Yes, he would, but that's consistent with other inferior officers, and so he is inferior. He's not actually this new thing we've created out of thin air. And even if the holding of the appointment of the special prosecutor is dicta in Nixon, because as I was explaining earlier, there was an argument that because something happened in Nixon and they didn't challenge the special counsel in that case, that the special counsel is legitimate. They say, well, okay, it's dicta, right? It wasn't actually relevant to the holding of the case, but we think the court should find it persuasive. So it's not binding on you because it wasn't even relevant in the case. So he now backtracks on that one, but we think you should still consider it. Now, at the conclusion, Cannon asked the government and the defense, file your supplements, including any statutory citations, in filings maximum 5 pages, and court was then adjourned. So, big day down there in Florida. Very curious to see where this goes because Jack Smith is illegal and should be removed from this case as somebody who was unlawfully appointed. They could have just appointed any other U.S. attorney to be the special counsel. They didn't. Why? Because they wanted Jack Smith, a partisan hack from The Hague, to come over and deal with it. So we also had an interesting filing from our friends over at America First Legal. And let me just share this intro with you so we can get a flavor for what's going on here. But they're joining also as amicus. This is in the Florida Classified Documents case, West Palm Beach Division. It's a nice filing, a 26-pager. We'll hit the intro because they're filing this in support of Trump's motion to fight Jack Smith's gag order. Remember, Jack came in and said, well, Trump can't say that we're trying to execute him by raiding his residence. He's not allowed to say that about us. And so they threw a big hissy fit. Now, Trump responded to that and said, I'm allowed to say what you put in your use of force policy. It's perfectly acceptable. And they had a cry fest over this, saying Trump needs to be gagged because he's embarrassing the hell out of us. Now, here is what America First Legal says in response. They say, all right, listen, Judge Cannon, we are hereby submitting this motion on behalf of the First Amendment. It says it protects Americans and all of our American liberties. Saying those rights belong to all people, whether innocent or guilty, convicted or acquitted, incarcerated or free. And when the rights of the criminally accused are at stake, the First Amendment requires constant judicial vigilance to ensure those rights are not minimized. Now here, the government asks this court to restrict President Trump's ability to speak freely before this trial. But imposing a prior restraint should be undertaken with great caution and with particular attention to the framers and the Supreme Court's disdain for trampling crucial First Amendment rights. Saying the government offers no evidence of the type of extreme disruption that could meet the standard for actually gagging Trump, and it can't meet the high standard for putting a prior restraint on Trump's speech, especially doing so months before Trump stands for an election against a president whose attorney general and special prosecutor is prosecuting him. Now, we know America First Legal is a nonprofit organization out there fighting for our First Amendment liberties, among other things. And so they are submitting this on behalf of Trump. They say presidential gag orders are incongruent with the First Amendment and prior restraint should not be allowed. Saying we've had principles in place for a long time. James Madison urged the adoption of the Bill of Rights because it is so important. And this has been critical to the functioning of America since its inception. Now, to overcome heavy presumption against prior restraints we have to have a narrowly defined exception, and they're only allowed in exceptional cases, which is not happening here. There's no incitement happening here. And there's no justification for it under Supreme Court case law. We know the Brandenburg case is about lawless imminent action. Is that happening here? We have no evidence of it. Now, the principle comes at a cost, and history requires vigilance when somebody's free speech rights are being taken away. The framers were concerned about preserving the democratic function of our government. They thought that a despotic government would eliminate the right to free speech, which they're trying now. And so they submit this very nice motion on behalf of President Trump. Let's see what they ask for in conclusion. They write, the court should deny the gag order signed by Judd Stone and Samuel Solario on behalf of the president, sending that one in, supporting the elimination of the gag. Now, MSNBC was also reacting to the activities and the events on the day. And here is what Lisa Rubin had to say. Actually, that post is now deleted, so we're not going to watch that clip. So, Lisa Rubin apparently is not available for comment on that X post, which is fine because we covered enough on that story as is. Now, we'll continue our coverage on this case. We'll see what else happens here. We've got new hearings happening on Monday and Tuesday to wrap up the remainder of the arguments about Jack Smith's illegal appointment and his unconstitutional thieving of money from the appropriations funds. We're going to continue to cover this, my friends, so thank you for joining us as we do. Would love it if you hit that subscribe button. Thank you for liking the like button. And thank you for watching this video, which is coming up next. We're excited to talk about Steve Bannon making an emergency appeal to the U.S. Supreme Court. We'll see you over there and back here on the next one. All right, and so let's get to it. We've got a Steve Bannon segment now, because he's making an emergency appeal to the Supreme Court. Let's see what he says. And all right, we're back. Steve Bannon now appealing on an emergency basis to the United States Supreme Court just days before he's set to report to prison. We know that the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals has denied his request for a stay. The government and the courts want him to go into custody for 4 months because they need to get him off the field prior to the 2024 election. If they put him in custody starting in July, 4 months from then will be putting us right into November, and he'll be off the air the entire time. They're excited about that. So we knew that the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals would deny him because it's the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals, and anything having to do with Trump loses there. We'll read through what they said briefly and then jump into what Bannon submitted to the Supreme Court. And there's good news that the Supreme Court has not rejected him immediately, has in fact ordered the government to respond, which means they may consider putting the stay in place so that Bannon doesn't have to report. Bannon's not asking to stay out of custody indefinitely. He's just saying, can I please stay out of custody pending my appeal so that I can exhaust my appeals? Because what happens if Bannon goes into custody for 4 months, serves his term, and then is vindicated on appeal? How does he get those 4 months back? Does he? No, he doesn't. You can't give somebody 4 months of their life back. So it's important that we preserve his appellate rights. Do you even have appellate rights if you have to go and serve your penalty without exhausting your appeals? Not really, but they don't care about that in D.C. So we'll see what Bannon says, and we'll see what the Supreme Court says about it. But this is the denial from the D.C. Circuit. This was what they said. They said, all right, sorry, Bannon, your motion is denied. It says Bannon's ground for requesting relief doesn't depart from the general rule. You shall be detained. Bannon was convicted of a misdemeanor from the illegally constituted J6 committee that Congress is now like, maybe we should do something about that, willfully making default in response to Liz Cheney's fake committee. Says, well, under these cases, we think the standard's been met. Bannon says that this does not bind the Supreme Court, but our unanimous opinion says that Congress can issue subpoenas and that this case would firmly support them having effect. The distinct wording and the functional relationship of the two clauses of contempt means it was done willfully. And so we think Bannon did it willfully. Bannon's proposal that to prove the willful default that the government must establish that he knew it was unlawful cannot be reconciled with SCOTUS. And so Bannon's arguments are not good. He provides no basis to conclude that our decisions will be reversed. They didn't sign it. Opinion of the court, pure curiam. And so the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals, of course, fails again. So they allow the J6 committee to just continue to imprison their opponents. America continues to fall there in D.C. Now Bannon is forced to take this upstairs. He says, "Dear Supreme Court of these United States," Steve Bannon versus the United States of America. Bannon is the applicant up to the United States Supreme Court. He's currently being prosecuted for his contempt of Congress. Now, Bannon is asking the Supreme Court for an emergency application for continued release pending appeal. In other words, to stop the order requiring him to go into custody. Allow me to stay out, stay the prior order saying I've got to go into custody. And so we'll hit the highlights on this one. It's a nice filing, 47-pager. You can see a lot of details, case law, as you'd expect when this goes up to the Supreme Court. But they write for us a bit of an intro, and they tell us that the parties, as we know, are Steve Bannon and the government prosecutors. They send this one up to the Honorable John Roberts, Chief Justice of these United States, says, "Your Honor, Mr. Bannon is here seeking the narrow relief of continued bail pending completion of his further appeals. Relief that Judge Walker would have granted below, as he explained in his dissent. Now, this relief is warranted, Your Honor, because the D.C. Circuit's precedent on the relevant mens rea element, the mindset, the guilty mind, is contrary to you, the Supreme Court's uniform case law on the meaning of willfully in the criminal context. So they have a meaning of willfully that's totally different than yours, and that made the difference in this case. And if you don't grant relief on this, Mr. Roberts, Judge Roberts, Bannon will be forced to serve his entire term before this court has an opportunity to review this issue, which is going to be a big issue. And so this case easily satisfies requirements for continued bail pending your acceptance of certiorari. Now, there is no dispute that Mr. Bannon is not likely to flee. He's not going to pose a danger to anyone. He's not going to harm the community. He's been out on release for years now, and there has been no incident at all. And his, quote, crime was nonviolent. Nor is there any claim that his continued pursuit of an appeal is for the purpose of delay. He's trying to exhaust his appeals. Accordingly, Mr. Bannon shall be released if this case raises a substantial question of law or fact. That, quote, if accepted, would result in reversal, a shorter sentence, or a new trial. That requires only a non-frivolous issue that, if decided in his favor, would likely result in reversal or could satisfy one of the other conditions. Now, as explained below in Part 1, that's not the same standard for obtaining a stay. Mr. Bannon is not required to show that he's likely to succeed on the issue or that there's been reversible error, a point that even the D.C. Circuit majority did not order or dispute below. Now, this case raises at least two substantial questions that satisfy the standard. The first involves the definition of a mens rea, saying this court has long held that willfulness in the criminal context requires knowing that it's unlawful. And Bannon did not think that what he was doing was unlawful. In fact, he thought it was very lawful. He had a lawyer advising him, couldn't even tell the jurors about that. And he thought that he was invoking his silence based on Trump's invocation of it, which is executive privilege. Indeed, it appears that it is the uniform interpretation this court has adopted in the criminal context. And that reading is strong here because Section 192 in the very same sentence omits willfully when criminalizing a different set of actions. So the word matters. Congress clearly meant to impose a different and a higher mens rea for the provision applied to Bannon. The proper mens rea is a critical issue because Mr. Bannon relied in good faith on his attorney's advice not to respond to a subpoena issued by committee until executive privileges were resolved with Trump, as they had been on 3 prior occasions when Bannon had already agreed to testify after Trump's counsel had asserted executive privilege. So Bannon had prior course of conduct that supported his actions. Now, following their prior practice, Bannon's counsel asked the committee to resolve those issues or have the matters resolved in a civil suit. Instead, like they did that in the past, they voted to hold him in contempt. They did it swiftly. Then the government indicted him, okay? It was a hatchet job. It was just an attack. They organized it to go take out Trump's deputies. Now, despite Bannon's reliance on his counsel's advice in good faith, and despite the fact that Section 192 requires willfulness for a default, meaning I intended to break the law, the lower level court reluctantly concluded that this case barred Bannon from presenting any evidence about his good faith reliance on his lawyer's advice. You can't talk about that. He thought he was literally in compliance with the law. Licavoli, which the judge used to keep that out, held that willfully only meant intentionally, not by mistake or accident, and that good faith reliance on his counsel could not even be raised as a defense, right? So Bannon, sorry. He says, as I've stressed many times, I have serious reservations that the Court of Appeals interpretation of willfully is consistent with the modern understanding of the word. It's not consistent with modern case law surrounding the term, let alone the traditional definition of the word. As I previously held, and I reiterate today, I am bound by Licavoli and its holdings. Okay, so even the lower level judge, just to be ultra clear on this, is like the lower level judge said, I have to use this crap definition of willfully because that's what the Court of Appeals says, but I think it's wrong. But I'm under the Court of Appeals, so I have to follow it. But I'm doing it reluctantly. This permitted the government to tell the jury that Bannon ignored the subpoena and thumbed his nose at the select committee. He never did that. He had a lawyer. They were talking about this back and forth. He didn't thumb his nose at them. The jury heard that the only explanation for his decision was that he thought he was above the law and that he didn't care about it, that he had contempt for the committee, which that is true. We all do. The jury, that's not illegal though, okay? You can have contempt for the committee. That's not a crime in America. They are contemptuous. The jury convicted Bannon and he was sentenced to 4 months in prison, which the district court stayed, citing concerns about whether Licavoli was still binding and whether the committee lacked proper subpoena authority, which they did because they were illegally constituted under their own rules. A panel now of the DC Circuit, again, that's what they do there, they affirmed the convictions. They said Licavoli bound the panel to hold that good faith reliance on advice of counsel is completely irrelevant. It's not even a defense. But even though Judge Walker joined that unanimous panel opinion, he dissented from denial of release pending appeal. He explained, the Supreme Court's not bound by Licavoli, and their interpretation of willfully is a close question, and it's material. Bannon should not go to prison before the Supreme Court considers this. Yeah, and they say this is true. Licavoli is contrary to you, Supreme Court. You decided one thing, they're going against you, and now they're using that to convict Bannon. As the DC Circuit panel acknowledged, this court has held that the general rule is that, quote, willfully means knowledge that his conduct was unlawful, which strongly favors Mr. Bannon. In fact, that appears to be the court's uniform rule in the criminal context, but the panel felt obliged to disregard this court's rule because of Licavoli. Walker explained in his dissent that this court, the Supreme Court, will have no such obstacle. So SCOTUS can fix this. Now, further, Licavoli also relied on the fact that this court had rejected an advice of counsel argument in the context of a separate provision. But under this court's approach, Congress and their use of 2 different mens rea standards is strong evidence that there's different tests because there's different words. The Licavoli case is especially unpersuasive because this court had already expressed and recognized that 2 distinct offenses are described in the disjunctive, and in only one of them is willfulness an element. Yeah, they're different. That's why we wrote them differently. Taken together, these factors confirm that the mens rea issue is a substantial question. Now, although this section does not require Bannon to make a showing that this court would actually grant review, we think you should. This court has taken a long interest in this section. You've granted 19 cases about this. You've talked about willfulness a lot, Your Honors. And the stakes could not be higher here, okay? Under the D.C. Circuit's case law, future agreements and disagreements about subpoena compliance will not be met with negotiation, okay? Wow, we've opened Pandora's box is what they're saying. So you're going to have to settle this Supreme Court because we're just indicting each other now, okay? We don't really care about negotiation. Bannon tried to do that. They indicted him. So we need to get clear on what willfulness is now because we're not playing nice anymore. And moreover, this court has also granted continued release in similar situations. Bannon makes an even stronger showing because even a judge dissented saying he should be released. So this case raises a second substantial question. There is an acknowledged circuit split about this. Any issue on which the circuits disagree is already necessarily a substantial question. And so if Mr. Bannon is denied release, he will be forced to serve his prison sentence before this court even has a chance to consider this. And you're also going to be going out on your summer recess soon, so we're not going to hear from you again. And as Judge Walker stated, Mr. Bannon's case raises substantial legal questions, and he should not go to prison before the forthcoming petition for certiorari. And so we're now asking for a stay so that Bannon does not need to report down into custody. We get into some serious case law, and so we'll fast forward through that and see what they're asking for here in conclusion. They tell us the stakes are extraordinarily high. Examples of other people held in contempt of Congress for allegedly disregarding subpoenas include attorney generals of both parties, White House counsel, EPA administrator. In the future, when the House or the Senate or the executive branch are controlled by the same party, there is every reason to fear that former executive branch officials will face prison after declining to provide materials to committees. Now, the government said it's unlikely that this will happen again. Yeah, right. But that memo strongly supports Bannon. It shows that not even the OLC, which speaks for the DOJ, will even actually defend the holding of Licavoli. Any executive official who asserts executive privilege is intentionally declining to provide the materials. And so then everybody who declines is necessarily in violation of the law. And so if they're allowed to stand, then there is a problem. Now, this is different than what Peter Navarro says. And this court should grant release. So there is a substantial question regarding the test. And this is knocking at your door, Supreme Court. There are other things that warrant favoring the release of Bannon. If Bannon is not granted release, he's going to serve his entire sentence before you even hear this. The court should also be mindful of the government's own conduct when it comes to congressional subpoenas. It says Congress recently issued subpoenas to the DOJ. Congress sent it to the DOJ about Hunter. But the DOJ told its tax division lawyers to refuse to comply. So Congress sends a subpoena to Bannon. DOJ says go for it. Congress says a subpoena to the DOJ about Hunter Biden. DOJ says get bent. Judge Reyes in the U.S. District Court for Columbia criticized them, said there's a person in jail right now because you brought a criminal lawsuit against him because he did not appear for a House subpoena. And now you guys are flouting those subpoenas. You say you don't have to show up? Yeah, jail for me, but not for thee. Hardly an acceptable position for the government. The government stated below that equal justice under the law requires promptly imprisoning Bannon, but those aphorisms ring hollow when the DOJ itself ignores the House subpoenas and they don't face any repercussions at all. So an even-handed approach strongly favors allowing Bannon to remain on release. At the very least, the DOJ's decision to ignore their own congressional subpoenas demonstrates both the significance of this mens rea issue and the illogic of preventing Bannon from even arguing that. There's also no denying the fact that the government seeks to imprison Bannon for the 4-month period immediately preceding November. There's no reason for that outcome in a case that presents substantial legal issues. This is a presidential election. We know who Steve Bannon is. As Judge Walker concluded in his dissent, Bannon should not go to prison before SCOTUS considers his forthcoming petition for cert. This court should grant his application and grant it quickly. For the foregoing reasons, Bannon respectfully request that his application be granted and that he remain on release pending the conclusion of these appeals, including this petition to you, SCOTUS. If necessary, Bannon respectfully requests the court issue an administrative stay of the July 1st, just days away, self-surrender date so that you can consider this matter. Signed by Trent McCotter, June 21st, from the Boyd & Gray law firm out of D.C. Very nice Supreme Court application. Obviously, making the correct arguments that Bannon is being treated differently, just like everybody else who is on the wrong side of those people in power. Bannon was invoking executive privilege on behalf of Trump. He had already negotiated with them previously. They decided to just prosecute him, just like they decided, just like the FBI said, I don't really give a damn about the optics. These people were on bloodlust. They wanted to go after everybody they could possibly get their hands on. They started with Trump's deputies. They took out Bannon. They're taking out Navarro. Then they started to prosecute all the co-defendants and co-conspirators, 19 of them in Florida, in Georgia, and others, 3 in Florida. Many others around this country been indicted on the back of political lawfare operations being launched by the Democrats. So Bannon now knocking on the door of the Supreme Court. The good news is the Supreme Court has said that they are willing to at least entertain it. We know that because they have published a response on their website, if this will load, telling us that the government has a deadline to respond. And so the Supreme Court has now said, government, what's your position on this? Should Bannon be allowed a response, yes or no? And we'll wait for the government's response, and we'll see what Bannon says in the aftermath. So we'll continue our coverage here, my friends. Thank you so much for joining us as we do. Would love it if you subscribed wherever it is you're watching this. Would appreciate it if you shared our channel with a friend or family member so they could join us as we go through a lot of this madness out there. We'd love to see you back here on the next one, but we have another great video coming up where we're going to be talking about Alvin Bragg, the prosecutor in New York, who's now facing a potential lawsuit from the state of Missouri. The attorney general there, Andrew Bailey, says, enough already. Bragg, by prosecuting Trump, is committing election interference. And so we're having that video queued up right here on the next one, and we'll see you over there. All right, but we're live, my friends, so let's get to it because we've got Bragg right here, and we're going to see what's happening in New York. The Donald Trump prosecutor known as Alvin Bragg now facing a lawsuit from another state, Missouri. And the attorney general there, this guy called Andrew Bailey, is saying he is prepping and getting ready to launch a lawsuit against Bragg for interfering with American democracy. He says, listen, I will be filing a suit against the state of New York for a direct attack on our democratic process through unconstitutional lawfare against President Trump. Said it's time to restore the rule of law. He's going to be the one to do it. And we got a couple of clips of him explaining how this will work. Here is Mr. Andrew Bailey telling us about his new plan.
Trump, and then campaigned on a promise to prosecute President Trump. He is self-interested in this case because President Trump is a political opponent of the people that Alvin Bragg is backing. Same with Matthew Colangelo. This was a top official in Biden's Department of Justice that until recently was being paid by President Biden's administration and has now been deployed by the DOJ to assist Alvin Bragg and is now leading the prosecution of President Trump in Manhattan. Again, this is an individual, Matthew Colangelo, who is a longtime supporter of the DNC. And so the political motivations of these two individuals is also self-evident, which gives rise to the clear accusation, proven accusation, right, that their motivations are illicit. They should have been disqualified from this case long ago.
Yeah, I mean, we've discussed Matthew Colangelo. He gave the opening statement in New York, and he was the attorney who questioned Jeffrey McConney, and Hope Hicks in the case so far. And he clearly has ties to the DOJ, left the number 3 spot at the DOJ. But I guess what I'm asking is, do you have, new evidence do you have any evidence that you think is going to be uncovered specifically in these emails that's going to lay out this link for people who listen to what you're saying right now and say, oh, he's just a Republican AG and he just, wants to support Trump?
Yeah, look, these are reasonable inferences to draw from the facts. When you've got, again, Alvin Bragg, who's expressed a self-interest in the prosecution, illicit witch hunt prosecution of President Trump. You've got Matthew Colangelo, who was working for President Trump's political opponent. And again, the objective here is to obtain an illicit conviction of President Trump, but it's also to take President Trump off the campaign trail, something they're successfully doing. And so that's election interference. But I would also point out that there's a long history of the deep state in Washington, D.C. at the Department of Justice behaving in this manner. Remember Peter Strzok and Lisa Page in 2016? Remember how on the eve of President Trump's election, they were already concocting schemes and texting one another back and forth.
I mean, what's the likelihood that you're going to get any of these records turned over to you? I mean, is this an exercise that is going to lead to evidence?
Yeah, we're not going to let the Department of Justice stonewall us. The people deserve to understand the illicit nature, illicit motivation of the prosecutors themselves who are perpetrating this illicit witch hunt. We need to put that out there and have it be transparent. The judge should have disqualified those prosecutors, but if they fail to do so, then the public needs to understand. We need to talk about how we're going to hold the prosecutors responsible. Their professional licensure is on the line. I think there's civil liability, and certainly to the extent they broke the law to obtain these illegal convictions that they're seeking, then it's time to prosecute the prosecutors.
It is time to prosecute the prosecutors. We like that. I think that's a good idea. And that's Andrew Bailey from Missouri, who's got this plan in place. We ask whether there will be time to get anything done because we got sentencing coming up in about 2 weeks from now. So he'll be sentenced and then there will be a conclusion there. But we do like that there is something underway. So we have Bragg filing to go through, but my switcher is acting up right now. So let me see if I can, give me about 30 seconds. I'm going to try to reboot the switcher because my picture-in-picture is not working, as you can see here. So my picture-in-picture is not working. So give me 30 seconds. We're going to try to reboot the switcher and get this fixed up here so we can close out the show. Give me 30 seconds to be right back. All right, I think we're back, my friends. So, sorry about that. I think we're back. Let's try this again. And let's see if our picture-in-picture is working. It's working. All right, so great. So hopefully you can hear me. We're coming in loud and clear. We're good? We're good? All right, sorry about that. So let's continue on. Okay, so where are we at? All right, so... Oh, Alvin Bragg. That's what we're talking about. Alvin Bragg is back. All right, so this is Alvin Bragg. Now, Alvin Bragg wants the gag order over Trump to be continuing on. Trump has asked for the gag order to end because the gag order was, in theory, only meant to protect witnesses from harm, jurors from harm, court staff from harm. Nobody wanted to have people get injured as the trial was progressing. But the trial is over. And so now we don't have witnesses like Michael Cohen or Stormy Daniels who are going to be problematic. Why do we need the gag in place still? Trump said, it's over, lift the gag. Here's Alvin Bragg responding, saying, no, we need the gag to stay in place. So we'll just hit the highlights on this and see what the reaction sounds like. But the people oppose, this is Bragg, we oppose the motion to terminate the gag order. It says the court entered those orders to protect 3 categories from Trump's inflammatory public attacks. It says the appellate division agreed with these narrow restrictions that were appropriate to this made-up concept, the fair administration of justice in criminal cases, which means nothing. It means whatever you want it to mean. And to ensure that participants in the criminal proceeding remained free from threats, intimidation, harassment, and harm. And so the case is still ongoing, they say. And just 2 days ago, the Court of Appeals dismissed Trump's attempt to appeal from the appellate division. They said there's no substantial grounds or constitutional questions. And so Trump's demands that this court end this gag even before the sentencing is overstated and largely unfounded. They say, first of all, Trump ignores the narrowness of this order. Trump is only limited from certain things. Nothing prohibits him from broadly criticizing the verdict or the proceeding or Alvin Bragg or this court. Well, he can't talk about the judge's daughter and the fact that she's raised $93 million plus for Democrats, works for Joe Biden. Can't talk about that. They say Trump also engaged in a flood of criticisms before and after the verdict. And so he can comment on about a lot of this. He's already talked about Biden and his staff. But the purpose of this order was to protect the orderly administration of this court. Again, absolutely meaningless, whatever you want it to mean. Thus, the relevant question is not whether the orders prevent Trump from speaking, they never have, but whether it's narrowly tailored, and here it is. Now, we say that Trump claims that we're acting in concert with Biden. But defendant offers no factual basis for this assertion, and there is none. The claim is a lie. We're not working with Biden. Yes, you are. Who wrote this? Did Colangelo write this? Who wrote this? Colangelo wrote it. Okay, Matthew Colangelo wrote this stupid motion. You literally came from Biden's office, Matt. Jerk. There's no evidence to support Joe Biden. We're working for Biden. You literally left the DOJ like last year, a-hole. All right. So give me a break. All right. So this guy, the bravado, unbelievable. There's no evidence. This claim is a lie. The guy who freaking worked for Joe is writing this motion. Okay. Now, Trump also asserts that Bragg's efforts to delay filing an opposition are shameful and says that the motion for delay was to defer the court's consideration. But Trump never objected to the briefing schedule, and as explained in our letter, the people are simply proposing adopting the existing schedule. And so these knowing falsehoods are just the latest examples of Trump's patent disrespect for you, for the administration of justice. Give me a break. Similarly, irresponsible attacks by Trump led this court to issue the orders restricting Trump's statements and to find him in contempt, not 10 times. As Trump continued, because he posted a bunch of stuff. He reposted. Remember, he reposted all the things. So as Trump's conduct makes clear, writes Biden's literal prosecutor, his number 3 from the DOJ, the need to protect participants in this proceeding and to protect the integrity of the criminal justice process from the criminal defendants' attacks remain critically important. So they say the court should keep this gag order in place. Now, they say, so keep the jurors protected. Here, there's no reason to allow Trump to comment on the jurors. So, man, they put a lot of work into this. They also say there's no basis for Trump to comment on the family. The court should maintain provision so that he can't talk about the judge's daughter, who's a little Democrat operative. The inflammatory remarks from Trump have caused serious problems. In fact, the New York Police Department have logged an increase in threats against Bragg, his family, and the staff, which I guess if they're illegal, if they're actual threats, hopefully they're prosecuting people, since they're the police department and it's already illegal to threaten public officials. So why do you need a gag order? And Trump didn't tell those people to go harass them, okay? So you can't gag Trump because he said something and some other people did something. That's called a heckler's veto, Matt. Defendant, again, falsely claims that the evidence was stale and there's no basis to maintain these restrictions. They also say there was a bomb threat. Oh, no. So Trump, therefore, needs to be gagged because other people think that Bragg's a piece of work. And also, Trump wants to talk about trial witnesses. Why can't he talk about Michael Cohen? Why can't he talk about Stormy Daniels? Now, the people say, oh, they agree. This no longer needs to be enforced. Finally, Trump seeks so that he can talk about witnesses. The people agree this provision no longer needs to be enforced. Oh, that's good. So maybe Trump can come out and start railing against porn star Daniels and perjurer Cohen. The need for the protection persisted through the trial. Now the jury has delivered the verdict. There is no interest in protecting the witnesses. Good. The relevant balancing interests have shifted. This change does not mean that he has carte blanche to resume his reprehensible practice of publicly attacking individuals. That's free speech, Matt. But there are other protections for them, so they can sue him for defamation, distress, and whatever. So Matthew Colangelo, Biden's prosecutor, says there's no evidence that we're prosecuting Trump here. Give me a break. What? I mean, the gall, this guy. Like, how does he even... Do you think he's laughing? Do you think he's deluded or just evil? Like, which one is it? Do you think he believes what he's doing, or he just thinks that he can't recognize it? He's got some cognitive problems. Maybe it's that. I don't know. So anyways, they want more of this. They love what's happening in New York. This weird woman is saying that this is what justice should be. We need a lot more of this. Hold Trump's feet to the fire because the public has an interest in prosecutions now. Where did that right come from? Here is this woman.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough, right? It is a balancing act. I reject this notion, and I hope that people aren't saying this seriously, lock him up as applied to Donald Trump. Well, no. Every criminal defendant is entitled to all of the protections that the Constitution provides.
No, they're not. They don't get evidence. Trump does not get evidence. Trump does not get the right to confront his accusers. Trump does not get the right to attorney-client privilege. They shatter that. Trump is below the law, okay, not above it, by design from these people.
Including Donald Trump. So there's that part of the balance.
Don't lecture us like he's...
And then there's this notion of protecting political leaders from the criminal justice system being weaponized, something Republicans are throwing around these days without much basis for it. But we don't want to be that banana republic where the criminal justice system becomes a tool of the White House or a tool of political...
We are literally that right now, lady.
...people. That, I think, is why prosecutors were right to go slow early on. They were breaking fresh ground. They wanted to ensure that before they investigated a candidate, then a sitting president, that they crossed every I and dotted every T. And that was frankly the right decision. No, they wanted to time it with the election. But on the other side of the equation is the way that Donald Trump uses the system against itself. And once it becomes clear that he's abusing the system for delay, to avoid facing.
You see, she has like a little smack problem there. Like once he's using the system for delay, because it's not delay, lady, it's due process, okay? The defendant has a right to review the evidence, to confront his accusers and all of those things. The right to a speedy trial is from the defense perspective so that they don't get thrown in the gulags indefinitely, like has happened to the J6ers.
Courts. Then I think the judges and prosecutors have to kick in and do, frankly, what they did in Manhattan. Hold that defendant's feet to the fire. Say, as Jack Smith has said in the Washington, D.C. prosecution, the public has a speedy trial right, too. What? And try to get the equation so that everyone's rights, both the defendants and the public's, are respected.
The public has a right, has an interest in a functional justice system. It's not like the Coliseum where we have to race through and get certain people convicted to satiate these people. It's about going through the proper process. And we have something called the presumption of innocence in this country, or we did. And they don't like that. They want more of Mercan prosecution style elimination of opponents. And fortunately, we have somebody in Trump who has the wherewithal and the backing of the American public such that he can weather this attack. Now, here is Alina in the House, and she's going to explain to us why Ariola Engoron and his judgeship is such a problem and why he needs to go, because he, of course, is now facing a recusal motion in the civil case for having a weird meeting with some other attorney and evidently being influenced by that attorney in his decision.
No, but misapplying law to fact is very different than what this motion is. And I just want to be really clear for the listeners on what happened here. This attorney, Mr. Bailey, went on TV bragging about the fact that he had spoken with the judge that was sitting on our case, Judge Engoron. The judge had not issued his final decision on this case. And this attorney, who has sued Trump, Sean,
more than 6 times, has now gone up to a judge sitting on an active case and spoken to him about the case. That is not allowed. He never notified the parties.
Ethical
not allowed.
rules of New
This
York.
goes way beyond anything else that we already know. And it gave us another reason to say, yet again, you need to step down. You need to take your robe, your code of judicial conduct seriously. As we know and have heard, there's obviously the Office of Attorney Ethics and Judicial Commission looking at this, but we cannot wait any longer for these judges to sit there and make the right decision. So we have to act, and the Trump team's going to continue to push and put the true facts out. We've also subpoenaed the individual, and we're going to look at what their communications were and see how much more corrupt, let me correct myself, this case is from what we already knew.
And that other attorney is a witness. And the question is Judge Engoron a witness? Because obviously he talked to that other attorney. So the attorney will say this happened, and we'll say, well, Engoron, you're next. We're calling you to the stand. We'll see you over here. And so will he give up the case and send that back over to a different judge? We'll see.
This was influenced. If we do find out about it, absolutely there are grounds to vacate the decision for a reversal. Frankly, as we know, this case was a sham to start with. As you said, Bragg has completely dismissed people that were violent on campuses. But when it comes to Trump, we have a different standard. This has to stop. I can tell you in November, I would push President Trump 100% to correct the judicial process and to stop this dual system of justice. It has to. We have to reverse it. The case was a joke to start with, just like every other case against President Trump.
Alina Alba in the House with very astute legal analysis, as usual. And I think she's right. Trump, the biggest issue, as far as I can tell, is the Justice Department. If we do not have a justice system, we do not have a country. And they are wrecking it for their own ends. And once they have it seized, and they have total control of the justice system, and they can just prosecute anybody who challenges and threatens them, we devolve into a one-party state more than we already are. So we're going to continue to cover this, my friends. And we'd love it if you joined us as we do. Thank you so much for subscribing wherever you're watching. Thanks for inviting someone you know or love to come join us. You can send them this video and say, I made you do it. And tell them to come on over here so they can see what's happening in the New York prosecution of Donald Trump. We got another great segment that's being queued up right now for you. And we'd love it if you joined us over there. Check out the segment on Jack Smith and his illegal appointment. We'll see you over there and back here on the next one. All right, my friends, that was 3 good segments on the day for us on this amazing Friday. And we're glad we got to go through the Bragg lawsuit potentially coming from Missouri. We've got Bannon taking it up to SCOTUS on an emergency basis. And Jack Smith gets grilled in Judge Cannon's courtroom. And now, my friends, it's time to hear from you. Let's see what you have to say about all this. It's an amazing Friday, and I'm grateful for your love, your donos, your support, and your good vibes. This is what John sent over for us today. Happy Friday. I'm sending you good vibes, my friends. It's a beautiful Friday. Thank you for that, John. Hey, what's up? Everett B in the house is our newest supporter. Just came aboard as a supporter. Look at this very romantic couple smooching each other in this photo, Everett. It's beautiful. Love is in the air, my friends. Isn't it just beautiful? Good to see you. We'll see you tomorrow, Everett, on the Membos Only morning stream. Hey, what's up? Tony Hay Munkets is bringing in some new Membos. 5 Membos coming in, courtesy of Tony Hay. What's up? Bringing in Melissa M. Katania Nana's in the house. We got that guy's back. We got Christian P. and L. Lambert in the house. Gifted Membos, courtesy of Tony Hay Munkets. What's up? Giovanni A. in the house. Membo for 1 month. Great to see you, Giovanna. We'll see you tomorrow on the Membos Only stream. Hey, first month's the hardest, by the way. It gets easier from there. Jennifer says, hey, please double check that you're all still subscribed to the channel. I'm a paying member, and YouTube keeps unsubscribing me from Rob's channel. It's odd. That is odd. I'm not happy to hear that, Jennifer. YouTube, stop doing that. We're trying to not have that happen. All right, Jennifer, thanks for reminding everybody. So, friends, check your subscribe buttons. Freaking YouTube. All right, thanks, Jennifer. Hey, what's up? David Ray is our newest supporter. Welcome aboard. David R. became a supporter and gifted 5 new membos. What's up, David? Thanks for doing this. Ginger's coming in. Go Girls here. Going Insane is here. Azure Sky and Lenny M. Gifted membos, courtesy of David Ray. Became a membo, gifted more membos. Amazing. Hey, here's one from Michelle P. Says, oh, hey, Michelle P. Membo, bringing in 5 more membos. We got Liza Jean W. coming in. Gloria B. Frank B's in the house. Frank C's coming in, and Mr. E 409 gifted membos, courtesy of Michelle P. Thank you, Michelle, for being a membo and bringing in new membos. Hey, what's going on? Bonnie says, Rob, I loved the All In podcast. Thanks for the heads up. Yeah, we talked about that this morning. Trump was on with the All In podcast. It was great. It was a great episode. Trump did excellent. He did very well. If you missed it, it was good. Trump, if he can, have that kind of demeanor about him, he's going to wake up a lot of people, just like he woke up those 3 dudes over there. Hey, Bonnie says, thanks for the heads up. Vegas meetup looks like it will be 105 on that Saturday. Okay, that's not too bad. 105's hot. We're not really leaving. Okay, we're going to, if you get there early and you want to go to the pool or something, of course, but we're going to have lunch. We're going to be inside. It's going to be hot. And it's going to be amazing. But I think in Arizona today, it's like 114 or something. So 102, 105, it's like, okay, fine. 105, what is that? Get a jacket or something, sheesh. All right, so thanks, Bonnie. We're looking forward to seeing you. Get ready for some hot weather in Vegas. It's going to be great. Knox is here. What's up? Says, hey, TGIF all. Knox is a defense attorney in Texas. Says there are 93 U.S. attorney offices in the U.S. with hundreds of U.S. prosecutors. I've always wondered why they had to pull this dude out of the Hague. Yeah. There has to be biased TDS U.S. prosecutors somewhere in those officers that could have done this, unless something is very rotten. Yeah. Maybe they're asking him to do, who knows? You're absolutely right. Why? Like, just pick someone else. You don't have to go get somebody who's in a very complicated position. Like, just go get a U.S. attorney. You avoid this entire thing. But they needed Jack Smith, probably because a real prosecutor wouldn't do it. What's up, Sheila P.? Bringing in 10 new membos. Thank you, Sheila. Very nice of you to do it. We got Ducky Best in the house. Rye, Renee U coming in. Kelly C. What's up? We got that guy's coming in. David H in the house. NJD. We got Jennifer C. We got K's in the house. Salty and Sherilyn, and we have 24/7 Live AZ Skies also shouting out. Man, these names. We got NY says, AG Garland practically recused himself from all things Trump. That's what he said. If Smith is subordinate, then he must be recused along with his boss, Garland. That's the rule of recusal. U.S. attorneys are independent offices with Senate confirmation. What's up? Glocky says, if you aren't on the list, are you even a real American? If you aren't on the list, we can't be friends because I'm on the list with my friends. Here's a chilling post. Says the Biden regime declares Trump supporters domestic terror threats in newly released documents. Yeah, that came out from America First Legal too. Another great story. Thanks, Glocky. Cowboy Rob says, couldn't Cannon hold Jack Smith in contempt for not answering her questions regardless of what the DOJ's regulations are? She could. She'd have to order him to answer that first. But I don't think he has to answer that. I don't know that she would need to go that far. She'll just say, well, you didn't answer. As far as I can tell, he's not in control. Like, there is no authority. So as far as I can tell, it's like she can just make her decision with the non-answer. She doesn't have to get the answer. She can just make her decision with the non-answer. And the non-answer might make her decision what it is. So, oh, well, there is no clear authority and there is no oversight. So sounds like he is kind of a unique position, which you don't have the power to do. So that's a problem. William H. What's up, William? Thanks for this. Nice dono. No question, but thanks for the support on the YouTubes. Grateful to have you here. We got Matt B. What's up, Matt B? Just became a supporter. We'll see you tomorrow on the members only stream on the YouTubes. Michelle P. bringing in more membos. 5 more membos coming in. Thanks, Michelle. Mark L. We got Jack D. Jack J in the house. Drew D's coming in. Carrie, who's a what's it, joined us. And Andy G. gifted membos courtesy of Michelle P. Thank you, Michelle, for being a membo and bringing in new membos. We got Knox is here. Says, okay, I tried to find out if the dude is even licensed. He has a temporary license in Tennessee in 2015 and is inactive in New York. Who are we talking about there? Who are we talking about? I'm sure it'll come to me. Thanks for the heads up, Knox. Lenny says, what's up? Lenny M. 1.1 thousand likes. Oh my gosh, thank you for that. That's a ton of likes. We'd love a couple more, though. Please smash the like button, please, says Lenny Valley. Thank you, Lenny, for the reminder. Hey, Knox says, what is your prediction on Jack's appointment? Ed Meese noted that Taylor Swift had as much standing as Jack to be special counsel. I don't know that Cannon is going to have the stones to nuke Jack Smith. I don't think so. I don't think she'll do it. But Trump will appeal it. I think the only people who will do it will be SCOTUS. So Trump will appeal it. It'll go up. I don't think the 11th Circuit will do it either. But this is going to have to be SCOTUS. Cannon, if she does it, man, good for her. But I don't think so. I think it'll be like a McAfee situation. McAfee punted because he's a newer judge. He's like, I can't do it. I think we're going to see the same thing with Cannon. She'll say it's ambiguous, but there's precedent, and it seems there's some indicia, and there's no clear rule. She'll come up with something. I don't think she'll boot her. She'll boot him. What's up? Alice says, got a bone to pick with you about the U.S. Supreme Court wealth tax. I think you're probably, we talked about some of the SCOTUS opinions this morning. We just kind of ran through them quickly. In my opinion, this was a fantastic opinion. Trillionaires and billionaires don't pay their fair share. Well, I don't think we have any trillionaires. So that's number one. So if you're expecting the trillionaires to pay for something, there aren't any. In fact, they're the biggest welfare recipients. I think about the Wall Street bailout. That was our tax money going to the wealthiest for failing. The wealthy need to pay us back. Thank you. Well, I'm not in favor of bailouts either. I'm not in favor of bailouts. And what did the wealthy? I'm not trying to dunk on you, but did the wealthy owe you something? Like, did you give them money or for the Wall Street bailouts? I guess. Yeah, I'm in favor of our government not spending any money, really. I don't think the Wall Street bailout should have gotten bailed out. I think that all of this bailing out of other entities is just this. It's continuing the big Ponzi scheme and the grift. So I'm in favor of basically no taxes. Yeah, we can get rid of most of the taxes and most of the government. So I don't know that we're actually that far out of agreement. I think we can agree, Alice, that we don't want our money going to people who don't deserve it because it's our money. It's ours. So I'm in favor of not being taxed and our tax money not going to the wealthy or to anybody else actually, other than maybe some very minimal local social services that we have accountability for or on charitable organizations. But it's an interesting case. It's an interesting question, Alice. I'm sure we could unpack that a lot more. But thanks for being a member on Locals. And thanks for having a bone to pick with me. I appreciate it. Cowboy Rob says, so Rob, is this a new thing about an advice of counsel being a non-defense if that's the case? So what is the point of having defense counsel anymore? Well, if you're Trump, not much, because the DC Circuit Court will just breach your attorney-client privilege. FBI will breach your attorney-client privilege. Your lawyers will be threatened by prosecutors that if they don't flip their witnesses, they'll take away their judgeships. So it's a big thing. Yeah, advice of counsel is not a new thing. It's a new thing that Trump can't use it because this is all new. Everything about this is new. So that's also being applied new. Interesting times. Jeremiah G, what's up, Jeremiah? Says, MG, we have never prosecuted anyone for contempt of Congress that has claimed executive privilege except for J6. Yes, and it was from an illegally constituted committee from Liz Cheney that violated their own rules. And the courts just kind of look the other way on it. And even our own Congress is looking the other way on it. Good to see you, Jeremiah. Thanks for that. The Midwest Express. What's up, the Midwest Express? Says, watching the watchers, prosecute the prosecutors, and switching the switchers. I know I had to reboot the whole thing today. Had an error. As always, great show, Rob. Thank you, the Midwest Express. Thanks for being a membo for so long, my friend. And for the nice comment. Yeah, did you hear that today? Prosecute the prosecutors. Pretty good, Andrew Bailey. Appreciate that. What's up? So, yeah, the switcher went dead today. And I saw that there was a bandwidth problem earlier. It was all blurry. So, just tech problem Friday, as usual. What's up, Jason? Jason S. Hey, good to see you. Jason Sylvester says, I love your work. Funny and informative. Sometimes when I'm not even trying to be, I know it's, I'm coming to Vegas with my wife. Yes. Hope to meet you. You definitely will, Jason. It's going to be a small little intimate group. It's going to be great. So we're going to do definitely meet and greets. We're going to do some networking stuff. We'll do some photos. I've got a coloring activity. I just ordered markers and construction paper. We have a coloring activity. It's going to be fun. I think we probably have some slides. I might have a little talk session. Mom's going to be there. Thinking maybe have a family panel. You guys can ask Joey some questions about the world and he'll solve everything for us all. It's going to be great. We're going to have a ton of fun, Jason. Can't wait to meet you and Mrs. Sylvester in the house. It's going to be great. What's up? Deep Sea Miner on local says, Rob, thanks for all your efforts, time, and adding humor to a gong show. Thank you for that. Yeah, it is quite the gong show. It is. And this week it's been a gong show. We had Nathan Wade's hot dog for speaking of gong shows. So yeah, it's a lot of fun, Deep Sea Miner. Thanks for supporting us, my friend. Thanks for joining us. I really enjoy our time together. And if we weren't able to go through it together, it'd be a gong show just in our own little bubbles would not be good. Hey, here's one from MAGA Hat Stays. Trump voters taking a look at the GOP saying, oops. Don't Be Hatin' says, I'm so bummed. Just found out I can't make it to Vegas. Ugh. Whoa, but I wanted to donate to help other watchers go. Hoping to catch you next time, Patriots. Trump 2024. Man, that's a bummer. Don't Be Hatin'. I'm sorry to hear that. Just found out, can't make it. Wanted to donate. Thanks for the donation. Yeah, I think there's going to be other people who have a little bit of, I think, difficulty maybe buying a ticket, which is no problem. So that's really appreciated. Don't Be Hatin'. We'll pass that along to someone else who needs it, of course. And we're grateful for that passing it forward, paying it forward. And thanks for this new dono. We're really sorry you can't make it. Next time, your ticket will be on us. All right. Thanks for that. Next time you come out, just let me know and your ticket's on us. What's up, Zulu? Bringing in 10 membos. Thanks, Zulu, for bringing in the new membos. 10 of them coming in. Me and Dad in the house. Welcome aboard, you two. Gail G's coming in. Scott G, Clyde D, April M, Matt's here. What's up, Mimi? Angel H, Lizzie for Freedom's here. Melanie came in. Muffin Rando and 24/7 Live and CGI Joe all shouting out Zulu. Zulu, thanks for being a membo, modding down the fort for us and bringing in 10 new membos. We got this one from Sheila. What's up, Sheila P? Keep the faith, watching the Watchers family. The future depends on us. I agree completely, Sheila. And that's why I think the work that we do here is so important. Because what we're trying to do is stay engaged, stay energized, have some fun, learn some stuff, hopefully take some things, apply to our lives to improve our lives, improve our situations, our frameworks, meet some people, meet some friends, but stay engaged, stay active, stay civilly involved. Not get toxified out, not get burnt out, not get jaded, not get bitter. Because we've got a long road ahead, baby. This is a generational battle we're on, a spiritual battle, and we're all on it. And so we're grateful to be going through it together with you, Sheila. Thanks for that. Thanks for being so supportive. We are the solution. We got to just keep going, and we will. What's up? Say hi, Cybrias. What's up? How do I say that name? Cybrias. Good to see you, Cybrias. Good to see you. Bringing in 5 new membos. Sorry, I'm butchering the name. It's a very fascinating one. As a membo, bringing in No More Me, Stumpy Stew's here, Gian Diata, what's up? Jody H, and Lord Castellan, all gifted membos, courtesy of SAIHBREAS. Good to see you, my friends. Thanks for that. Sheila P, bringing in 5 more membos. Thank you, Sheila. Dave is here. Will P. We got Tracy L, Kyle C, and Ben N in the house. Gifted membos, courtesy of Sheila P. Great to see you, Sheila. Oh, Carol Myers. Oh, yeah, Carol Myers says, hey, membo for 1 month. Says, happy Friday. Power's back on in Mesa. Oh, my gosh. I didn't even know it was out. Power was out in Mesa? What's that from? The heat? You guys get overloaded out there? It's not good. Mesa's that way. And not too far from me. So, yeah, hopefully stays on. Because it's hot out, man. It's like 114 out today. What's up? Knox is in the house. Says, I was talking about Jack Smith. Whoa. Does he sign his pleadings with a bar number? He doesn't even sign them. Good question. So Knox was talking about Jack Smith, and her comment earlier was saying that, okay, try to find out if the dude is even licensed. He has a temporary license in Tennessee. In 2015, he's inactive. in New York? It's a great question. What is Jack Smith's bar number? What does his bar record look like? Knox, you might be onto something. We got to do some digging on that. Hey, what's up? Martha M in the house with a nice dono. Man, look at that video game, man. Just leveling up. Look at this bicep day, man. I like that one. What's up, Martha? Thanks for that. Thanks for the nice dono. We got Carol M bringing in 5 new membos. Carol M, thanks for being a membo for so long and bringing in the membos. Suzanne B's coming in. Mark L in the house. We got Lucas G, Neo Woe, and Rory M gifted membos, courtesy of Carol M in the house. Great to see you, Carol. We also got Cowboy Rob. Says, did the big 3 ever pay their bailouts back? I don't think so. No, I mean, we just kind of print money and just give it away. So I don't think anybody pays any of their money back, right? It's just new. We just add it to the tab, essentially, which I'm pretty sick of because it just causes inflation. It causes, our money supply just keeps growing, which is why I'm happy Trump's into Bitcoin. Hey, what's going on? This one came in from Jay. Hey, upgraded the membo to a shout out membo, which is a really nice thing to do. It doesn't really add any, features or anything like that. I'll have to rework the membos, which is on the list. I got to kind of rework those. But thanks for upgrading nonetheless, Jay Piers. Really appreciate that. And we love our membos. And we'll see you tomorrow on the membos only stream in the morning. Now, we also want to say what's up to our friends on X. Let's see if there is any good comments or any comments to attend to on X before we hop on over to locals for our members only after party. We do have a couple of comments here. What's up, Danny McWilliams? We got another one talking about a Catholic nun. George has a photograph of some very nice animals over there. Very cute. We have some other comments from TJ King. Jim Untershine, good to see you. And some other very interesting shares over there. It says, if Jack Smith and presumably Mueller were inferior officers, what was the daily mantra during the Russian hoax that Trump is forbidden from firing a special counsel? If he does it, it's impeachable. Yeah, I think you're right. Well, Mueller at some point was a U.S. attorney. I don't know that he was an active U.S. attorney at that time, but he was at some point a U.S. attorney. Jack Smith never has been an appointed U.S. attorney. Has never happened. So that, I think, is a big distinction that disambiguates the two. But okay, it's great stuff. So this is where we're going now, my friends. Watchingthewatchers.locals.com. It's a beautiful Friday. We're going to go hang out for a little bit and chat. So come and join us if you want to be a part of that. We also have our website, robertgovea.com. All the PDFs we just reviewed will be up and on the website here in a bit. So thanks for checking those out if you want to download them. Next week, the schedule will be a little bit wonked because we're traveling to Vegas. So check the calendar. We'll keep those updated. And if you want to join us in Vegas on Saturday, 1 week from tomorrow, June 29th, grab your tickets, watcherlodge.com. It's going to be a ton of fun. We're going to hang and meet each other and have a lot of fun. Have a nice meal. It's going to be the best meal. It's Trump Hotel meal. Going to have the best napkins. Going to have the best rolls. Going to have the best chocolate eclairs you've ever seen. Now, we want to head over to watchingthewatchers.locals.com. Before we do, we got to say thank you to our mods and our meme smiths who keep things nice and orderly and beautified around here all throughout the week. Shout out to our friends. K Bean in the house. We got Just Cause, Playing Hooky, Ronnie Cole, Zach Nichols, Janek, Dog Digger, Economy Pilot, Donut Mind Me, Carrie B, and our friend Zulu modding the fort down for us. Our meme smiths are Sleepy Dog Lee, Nathan N810, Jeegum Geegum, Glocky McGlock, and Elliot, our Dockmaster, all keeping this place nice and beautified. My friends, that is going to be it for us on the day. We are going over to watchingthewatchers.locals.com. Members, we'll see you back here in the morning as well for our Saturday stream. And if you're going to Vegas or you want to come over and join us on the lodge, we're going to have a stream tomorrow after the Membo stream. We're going to stream and just do a debrief on Vegas, what the plan is for Vegas, and have a conversation about what you guys want to get into. So check it out. Sign up at watcherlodge.com to attend that as well. But my friends, that is it for us on the day and on the week. We are going to leave it there and be back here on Monday. But until we come back here on Monday, I want to wish you a tremendous weekend. I want to encourage you to have some time to yourself to reinvest in yourself, spending time with friends that you love, your family that's so important, and the people that matter in our worlds around us. We want to get outside, get some fresh air, get some vitamin D, get some sunshine, and restore our energy tanks, rejuvenate our souls, and reinvigorate our spirits, because we've got business to attend to back here on Monday. And in order to do that, we're going to need to see you right back here so that together, with your help, we can shine that big, beautiful spotlight of accountability and transparency down upon our system with the hope of finding justice. Make it a beautiful night, my friends. An incredible weekend. We'll see you right back here on Monday. Bye-bye. What's going on, my friends? Oh, wait, I forgot to log us out. All right, so we'll be back in a minute. Sorry about that.